My dad was actually an orthopedic surgeon, but I was very lucky because we always had ranches in my family. And the ranches were pretty good sized ranches, you know, a couple thousand acres, actual cattle ranch. And as far back as I can remember, you know, I loved going to those ranches. And as soon as I was old enough, I'd go and spend all my summers there and live with the cowboys. And you know, as long as I can remember, you know, all I ever wanted to do is just be a cowboy. I like being outdoors, a part of the land and the cattle and definitely the horses, you know. I mean, you know, I found a way to crawl up on those horses when I was a kid. And, you know, back in those days, there weren't a lot of guys to teach you how to do it. Matter of fact, as I look back at those old cowboys that I loved, as I look back, I realized they were really good cowmen, but they probably weren't really great horsemen, you know, too rough with the horses. So, you know, as I came along, you know, always searching for a better way. And the only way I could find to be a cowboy sometimes, I thought, well, you know, I'll just go rodeo. I guess I started actually in the late 60s and actually rode up into the mid 80s. And so, you know, back in those days, you know, you just truly learned through the school of hard knocks, but made my way through there, riding broncs and bulls, and then rode bulls all over the United States, Canada, Mexico, and more than anything, just learned about that cowboy way of life, that integrity and that never quit attitude.
I was raised in the East Bay area of San Francisco, and back in the 50s and 60s, that was all ranch country and had a lot of horses. My dad was a 2-time Golden Gloves champion in New York, and he was second in the world in 1954 in lightweight division of boxing. And so I was raised around boxers and sailors. My dad was in the Navy, but his manager was a cowboy. He put me on my first horse when I was about 3, and all my friends' families had ranches. And I went to a Brandon one time, and I wanted to ride a ranch horse. You know, I thought, oh man, a real ranch horse, you know. And so I'll never forget this one kid's dad says, hey son, he says, you know, I'm about 12. He says, hey son, you can ride this one. And I said, oh, okay. And I'm hustling over there. This sucker does this, you know. And so I kind of crawl up on him, and I mean, I gig him, and man, he bogged his head and went to bucking. And as he bucks by, he hits the mirror on the pickup truck, and I knocked the mirror off with my knee, and he bucked around through there, you know. And I was it all get done, and I'm still there. I'm like this, you know. And then all of a sudden, the guy's dad says, "Atta boy, Casey."
Oh,
and I mean, my blood, man, I was like, and I'm like, he thought I rode like Casey Tibbs, man. And that was it. That was it. I got hooked. I wanted to be a cowboy and a rodeo cowboy. I wanted to be an all-round. You know, Larry Mahan was the big deal, and Jeremy Shoulders, they were the big deal back then. And so I run into a guy named Johnny Hawkins, who was a '63 world champion and 5 times runner-up, and first man ever be inducted in the Hall of Fame. He was a bareback rider. And I went to his rodeo school, and same kind of thing happened. I got on this little horse and went out there, and all my friends, we all went there, and they all fell off, and all the girls went over and picked them up and licked their wounds, and I found myself at the whistle, and the pickup man, he gets me off, and I'm like that, and he goes, how many times? He says, you rode pretty good. How long you been riding? That was my first time. So he took me over there, and Johnny took me under his wing, and it just, you know, I found myself in a situation where my hero thought I was doing pretty good, and they called him John the Baptist. He did no drinking, no smoking. He was the first health conscious and fitness cowboy. You know, he's the guy that started all that. And so that was what, man, right then, that was it. I did no more drinking or smoking. You know, I was 16 years old. I'm going to be like Johnny.
Well, you know, nowadays we're trying to avoid the bronc ride as much as we can.
Oh, absolutely.
But, you know, rodeo is a great way of life. You make lifelong friendships, and like I said, it teaches you how to be mentally tough and something about competing. And one thing about competing that I like to point out, you know, it's easy to be a good winner. You know, so it's hard to be a good loser. You know, nobody likes to lose, but you know, you have to, again, down deep, you don't want to lose, but you got to learn how to lose, because that's part of the game. Yeah. I think when we were kids, you know, just about every
television show.
Every show was a darn western. You had the Rifleman, and you had Bonanza and Paladin, and Have Gun Will Travel. Yeah. I mean, you name it. They, you know,
Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke, The Rebel, Johnny Yuma. I mean, Wanted Dead or Alive with Steve McQueen. I mean, everything was cowboy.
Yeah. You remember the one with Jack Lord where he was?
Oh, Stony Burke.
Stony Burke. Remember that?
I got a colt over there named Stony Burke right now.
Yeah. Remember, he used to get in the bucket chute. He'd go like he'd go, let's dance.
Let's dance.
I thought that was the coolest thing.
He was cool, man. I think I started rodeoing in the '60s, and I probably won my card probably 70, 71 or something like that. And what years were you rodeoing over there?
Well, I started in 72 and went till 86, and I got my card in 74. When was the last rodeo you rode in?
You know,
What
believe it
rodeo?
or not, I think the last time I actually got on a bull, I was invited. Believe it or not, I just wanted to get that, you know, that decade, and I think I was 1990 or 91, I got on old timer, actually placed and rode my bull, so that was enough right there. So, you know, the traveling was tough, you know, getting from one place to the other, because I wasn't so great that I was making a fortune. And so, yeah, just the money and paying for the gas and living just like he said.
We were doing 90 rodeos a year and going over 1,000 miles a weekend. I mean, you know, we'd go to 3 or 4 rodeos.
Exactly. I remember people telling me that Pat had ridden bareback horse. He was a good bareback rider, because I can remember, just like you're saying, we rodeoed really Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays too. You know, go to a jackpot and, you know, took that rodeo pretty serious.
We go 2 on Saturday, go afternoon rodeo, and then hustle over to a 7 o'clock performance.
Absolutely.
And bareback riders had a heck. We'd come in there and the grand entry be going and
I hated you bareback riders. Y'all first event, and y'all would be through, and then well, bull riders would be back there, you know, sweating, waiting for the last guy to go.
I was over. Oh, okay. I have a Pepsi Cola here while I'm waiting to see how you.
Yeah, it was a Pepsi. Yeah. So, but
I drink Coke.
Yeah, Coke. There you go. I knew it was. But what a great life it was, and really set a precedence for just cowboying. You know.
I give rodeo credit for a huge education.
Really put yourself out there, and you kind of learn to survive getting up and down that highways. And I think cowboys, you know, they'll go to bat for each other, and that's something you learn. You know, those bonds are, you're in the trenches together. It's sort of a life and death thing when you ride rough stock sometimes, and it makes you close. Yeah. It makes you close. I borrowed money, quite a bit of money, to have my own cattle herd and grew my own hay, and then rodeo at the same time. But, you know, and I always loved horses. So I was always trying to start colts on the side, make a little extra money. And I kind of partnered up with an old boy from Oregon named Hank Kirshner. He was just a young guy like me, and he was doing some real cool stuff. And I said, wow, that's interesting. He said, you know, a guy named Ray Hunt showed me. You need to meet this guy named Ray Hunt. And this is about, you know, in the probably 83 or 4. And so he would show me a few of these things. And then I heard about this guy Ray Hunt coming to San Angelo, Texas, you know. And so I said, well, I'm gonna go over there and see this old boy. And that was a real big change for me, because I think the main thing I learned from Ray was the, you know, working with the horse, not against the horse. You know, the power of working to the power of understanding. So that's how it started for me, and pretty soon more people wanted to come watch. And, you know, like I say, you know, once we started making them pay, they really started listening. So, you know, so. For me, I've always loved to teach. So I had a rodeo school out in California, and had a really good run, went about 7 years without getting bucked off. And then, you know, all of a sudden I found myself just a little slower, just a little heavier, and I hit the ground 3 times in one season. And that kind of... The light went off a little bit. I just kind of, you know, and I hit the ground, and if I ever hit the ground, boom, I was up. I was banging, and then it's something right there, and then but right in that period of time, I had spent time with Troy Henry. Troy was the guy that taught me to be a horseman, and he passed away in '81, and '82 was my very first clinic I ever put on. And I love helping people, and I love horses. And that's when all of a sudden I said, that's what I want to do, is I want to learn how to, every aspect of the horse training subject, you know, whether it's from foals all the way up, and every kind of breed. Now, I just got interested in all that stuff. So I lucked out and got an apprenticeship with this Troy Henry, and we were with him for 5 years. And then pretty soon people started asking me, you heard of Ray Hunt? And I said, you know, because they thought maybe I'd copy him or something. I said, no, I never heard of Ray Hunt. And that's why I started thinking, Ray Hunt. All of a sudden I realized I'd gone to a little deal one afternoon, and I'd spent about 6 hours at this clinic in 1975. You didn't realize it was Ray. Yeah, it wasn't that big a deal then. But then, you know, about this time, then all of a sudden I started realizing that what I really liked doing is I loved horses, and I loved helping people. Then it all just kind of came together. This is my niche. I remember discussing with you one time years ago, and I think you were in Fort Worth and we were visiting, and there was probably only about 4 or 5 people in the world doing what we were doing. And I remember saying to you, well, you think there's room for all of us? All 4 of us? Yeah, all 4 of us. There's thousands. No, now there's thousands. So, but you know what? You know, I think when you have something good, a better mousetrap, and a good way of life, you know, teaching people about horses and horsemanship. I think experience is the best teacher, And like we said, it takes a long time to really learn great horsemanship. I know that for me, each year it seems like I look back and I say, you know, I'm so much better this year than I was last year. People that maybe came to a clinic 15 or 20 years ago, they go, they say, well, you're not doing it like you used to do. And you want to say, well, you know, I hope not. You know, I hope I'm making a few changes and growing and hopefully getting better.
Growth and change are two different things. You know, and you've got the same philosophy, and that, like I found, I've got the same basic skeleton, but now, man, I've got more scope and depth. I've got more experiences and things to draw on, and kind of know some things that can kind of get right to the heart of the matter.
You know, the more things you learn from some of these old guys like Troy, and you know, sometimes you got to draw some of those old-time things out once in a blue moon. You know that, like I said, I look back at those old-time cowboys, and I remember they were rough on those horses. And I never did really like that too much, you know, because, you know, I always had sort of an empathy, a feeling for those horses. I mean, I really liked those horses, you know, and, you know, I was always sort of searching, you know, and without even realizing, I think I was trying to take a softer, slower, gentle, more effective approach. And then after meeting guys like Tom Dorrance and Ray Hunt and a lot of other great horsemen along the trail, you know, that was a better way.
I always thought I was really gentle with horses. You know, I never tried to be rough with horses. It was easy for me to get quick and rough, just because being athletic and kind of my temper get up and stuff. But now, I think the biggest difference between then and now is I've learned what polite and passive persistence really means. It's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know, it's, when's he going to think your way? When's he going to turn?
Yeah, and they're all a little different about that.
And,
you know,
and some of them want to move their feet, and some of them don't want to move their feet. And
you know, you're right, because I always say the toughest horse you do is the one you can't get to go. I mean, because you can't hardly train them without that forward movement. So you got to know what to do or how to adjust to fit that situation. And that's what a lot of great horsemanship is about, just adjusting to fit that situation and then making it work. So I can remember doing that, and guys kind of, poo-pooing that idea and wanting to take the shortcut and make them do what you want them to do. Honest to gosh, I remember pulling up, and you do a great job on a tough horse. And they'd say, well, you know, you're bound to have worked that horse before. And I'd say, no, there's a lady Owens I've never seen him before in my life. And I can remember those guys, I would say to them, and these would just be these little events. I'd say, well, I said, you from around here? They'd go, sure am. I'd say, you got a horse? Sure do. I said, well, you want to bring him up here? You dang right. And I swear that guy'd get up and leave, and in an hour here he'd come with some old open top trailer, and I always say it's a bad sign when they got to back it up to the round pen to get him in there. Then you'd go to work, and by the time you got through, that old timer would walk up to you and stick out his hand and say, I'm a believer now. It was a hard sell back then, but the proof was in the pudding, and I swear the horse, if you did it right, it's the horse that would never let you down. As you're a young guy, they really want to, you know, play you down like you don't know what you're doing or you don't have the experience. And especially, this was brand new. People had never seen this method of working with the horse, and that's literally working with the horse, and not just going out there and earing him down and making it happen. You know, working with that horse, making the change, and they had a hard time believing it. And I think a lot of them didn't want to believe it. You know, but I think in the end they saw it was a better deal for horse and cowboy.
People said, you know, that's hippie horsemanship, or you know, it was kind of funny how it is. Like I was thinking, well, can't you see this is just a good deal for everybody?
Absolutely.
I mean, hippie
no,
you know, and
it's pretty obvious.
So it kind of made me scratch me, because I was there truly to try to help people and help them with their horses and stuff, and then to get the skepticism and cynicism and criticism that would happen at first. But I had a mule tell me one time, there's nothing more persistent than a Pat Parelli.
Yeah, he made his match right there. And with a mule, that's pretty good. So.
And you know, that's what I've just did it. I think just persisted, and I had guys come up to me and saying, "Boy, I'm really glad you're here. I'm glad to see you're sharing your horsemanship with us, and thank you." And you know, it's like it feels like now it's kind of finally starting to pay off. And I mean, I was really, you know.
Well, it is amazing. Some of those top guys will come and say, you know, it was good for me to sit here and watch that. It makes me remember I need to just slow down with my horses a little bit and give them a chance and build that real foundation. And you can still get where you're going. I think the horses are more relaxed. I think, you know, one of the main things we've been doing all these years is just the first and most important thing is taking the fear out of that horse, because you can't really ride a scared horse and do a good job. So we're both kind of workers by nature, and I don't really have any intention of slowing down, and you know, as long as I can stay in the saddle, that's what I'm going to do, and try to keep helping people and keep helping horses.
Well, I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm going to get down to half days, you know, 12 hours.
Well, I didn't say we couldn't slow down a little bit.
I'll back off a little.
Yeah. But you know what? We're going to keep this thing going, and you know, I think, like we always say, horses are good for people, and hopefully, if we do it right, we're good for the horse.
Yeah, and you know, you can't help horses unless you help people.
Absolutely.